Hello everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah if you're new here, and I attempted to read all 50 books from the Times article, The 50 Romances to Read Right Now. So that article came out, I believe, in the summer of 2024. So I have been working on reading through these books for almost a year. And the one holdout was a book I was on the hold at the library for 8 months. And I finally gave up. I was like, you know what, 49 books attempted out of 50 is good enough for me. I can go ahead and make this video before I forget everything and anything about all of these books, because I've been working on it for so long. So we're just going to talk about the article a little bit, and then I'm going to go book by book and just talk about my reading experience with them, whether I like them or not, and my top 10 out of the 50 on this list. We have 50 books to talk about, so let's go. So this article was a curated list from Times that they put together, and they solicited like librarians, booksellers, readers. They really, I think, did a really good job researching to find these books. And the thing that I like about this list in particular is that it spans centuries. The earliest book is, I believe, Cecilia by Franny Burney, and that came out in the 1700s. We've got Pride and Prejudice all the way up to books from 2023. So we have a wide range of publication dates, but we also have a wide range of types of romance. So this is a really diverse list in terms of the type of romance it is, authors. You know, there's some queer things on here. There's even some young adult as well as adult works on this list. So I'm actually really impressed by this list. I was actually really pleasantly surprised, and there were some books on here that I am really grateful that were brought to my attention. Once I read them, I was like, you know, I never would have read this unless I read this list. And I'm really grateful for that, because some of these are new favorites. If you want to go follow along with me as I talk about these books, I'll leave the link to the article down below. This list is ordered by publication date. So we start with the earliest works up to the most modern. And so I'm just gonna go from top to bottom with this, and we're gonna talk about 3 books at once. So I'm gonna scoot over so we can kind of see the screenshot of the list as I talk about them, and let's go. All right, I'm way over here now. So first we've got Cecilia by Frances Burney, Pride and Prejudice, and Friday's Child by Georgette Heyer. Cecilia by Frances Burney was a DNF for me. I read the first 10% of this book, and this is 1,000 pages. This was a work originally published serially, meaning like once a week through the newspaper, and it shows. It felt like it dragged on, and I couldn't really follow from chapter to chapter what was going on, and so I gave up. Maybe this is good, I have no idea. It inspired Jane Austen to write her work, which is really cool connection there, but I didn't finish this one. I did read Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. This is a classic tale of romance, misunderstandings, and bad first impressions. And this is great. This is a classic. I highly recommend this one. I gave this one 4 stars. The reason I give this 4 stars is because I feel like Lizzie, the main protagonist, does not do enough apologizing herself for her misdeeds. Mr. Darcy does a lot of the legwork in this story in terms of character growth and apologizing for his actions. In my opinion, Lizzie could have been a little bit, like, actually vocalized an apology to him for her pride and judgment. As someone who has now read many of Jane Austen's works, now this is in probably my top 3 Jane Austens. So highly recommend this one. I also love the 2005 movie and the BBC, you know, mini-series or whatever. I love it all. Friday's Child was the book that I was waiting for 8 months at the library, so we're just gonna move on to the next group of 3. Then we have The Price of Salt by Claire, that's not right, by Claire Morgan? Is that correct? Anyway, The Price of Salt, and this was a DNF for me. I read 12% of this. This is one of the first published sapphic works that was actually had a happily ever after. I didn't like this because it was boring. I didn't like the vibes, and there was like emotional cheating going on, which is kind of a deal breaker for me and my personal reading taste. Blood of Scoundrels by Loretta Chase. This is one of my favorite historical romances of all time, and I kind of hate myself for loving this as much as I do, because the main male character is actually pathetic and dominating, and typically not a hero that I root for, but the main female protagonist is so awesome and with it, and she just is so accomplished and knowledgeable and competent. That's the word I'm looking for. She's a very competent main character, and I just loved her so much, and then I ended up really falling in love with her and this romance. This was like a 4.5-star read for me. Then we have Indigo by Beverly Jenkins. This is a great historical romance featuring Black characters. I really like Beverly Jenkins. I've read several of her works at this point. This is a 3.5, 4-star read for me. This is about two people who work the Underground Railroad in the United States, falling in love with each other. So it has a little bit of like spy, espionage, plot line going on, as well as a really cool romance. This isn't one of my favorite romances of all time, but I see the vision and I like what Beverly Jenkins is doing in here. There were just a couple of things that didn't quite work for me, but it's still a solid read. Then we have If Only It Were True by Mark Levi. I couldn't find this book anywhere without having to purchase it, and I decided up front when I started this project that I wasn't going to buy books specifically for this project. I don't make any money doing this at all, so if it's not in my library, it probably wasn't gonna get read. Sorry. Jewels of the Sun by Nora Roberts. I read half of this book before giving up. My track record so far isn't that great for a number of books read, but at least I tried most, if not all of these books. This read like too much like literary fiction for my personal reading tastes than romance, and like a contemporary romance. It's like a woman traveling to the UK to kind of have a rest, a relaxation, kind of a refresh of her life, falling in love. I was bored, and again, I just didn't like the tone and the vibe. It was leaning more lit fic for me. Then we have The Viscount Who Loved Me by Julia Quinn. Now, I have to give a big caveat. Do not read The Duke and I, which is the first book in this series. Skip that one, go straight to The Viscount Who Loved Me, because The Viscount Who Loved Me is one of my new favorites. Kate and Anthony in the book have so much banter and energy and chemistry between them. It's a little bit enemies to lovers situation. They're caught in a compromising position and have to get married, and just the angst and tension in this historical is truly fabulous, and I really, really love this one, and I gave it 4.5 stars. Oh, one of my favorites. Then we have Twilight by Stephanie Meyer, and say what you want to say about Twilight. I'm gonna make a very bold statement here. I would not be the reader I am today without reading Twilight in middle school and gabbing with my friends about it and going to all the movies and reading through all the books on lunch. Twilight was formative for me in my reading journey. Now, is it peak literature? No, but what it did for me and my reading journey, I will be forever grateful for. This is a vampire young adult romance. It's not very good technically and has some wacky world building things, some weird Mormon religion thrown in here, and of course the exploitation of the Quileute tribe, which is a real tribe we don't love, but for the time that this book came into my life, I'm really grateful for it. I'm not going to give it a rating, but I'm grateful for this book for what it did for me personally. Then we have A Hunger Like No Other by Kresley Cole. This is a 1.5 star for me. This is a paranormal contemporary romance, and there's so much non-consent in this book that was supposed to be sexy, and I am not into that. It's just not for me, so we're just gonna say it was a 1.5 star and move on. Then we have A Devil in Winter by Lisa Kleypas, and again, this is one of my new favorite romances. I have now reread this book since originally reading it for this video, and it still holds up upon reread. This is an marriage of convenience historical romance between a woman who is desperate to get away from her family and a man who is in need of money, and he's also of the peerage, and so they have a marriage of convenience. I love a marriage of convenience when both parties gain equally from the marriage. Like, they both have to gain something equally in my eyes for it to be a very successful marriage of convenience, and I think this pulls it off. These two characters are also working on a project together, which is one of my favorite things, and it's a really easy device for getting characters to spend time together, and work through their problems in like a close proximity. I love A Devil in Winter. 4.5, 5 out of 5 stars. Then we have Lover Awakened by J.R. Ward. This is another 1.5 star, another paranormal contemporary romance. And the 10% of this book that was actually a romance I actually enjoyed. But this was really confusing from a world building perspective, and there were so many other points of views outside of the main couple in this one that I just, like, I didn't care about the romance because it was such a small portion of this overall story. Also, this one is a fated mate situation, and that's just not my jam. However, Slave to Sensation by Nalini Singh is a paranormal romance that I actually enjoyed. This was a 4-star read, and the reason I enjoyed this one is because these two, the main couple, are of 2 different species, but they have equal power dynamics between them. One is a telekinetic empath, someone who, you know, can read minds and stuff like that, and then one is a shape changer, and the shape changer is like a really kind of a powerful alpha male, but our female protagonist also has power of her own and can hold her own against the guy, and so it doesn't feel icky to me, and I actually kind of enjoyed my time reading this one. I thought it was kind of fun, to be honest. All Through the Night by Suzanne Brockman is a romantic suspense thriller, which was very interesting, and it is also a male-male romance, Achillean romance, and I gave this one 4 stars. This one was really cool because this is like a series of unfortunate events that happen preventing these two from getting married, because these two are already in an established relationship before the start of the book, but they're like, it's like a countdown to their wedding, but all sorts of stuff keeps coming up. Also, this is one of the very first like long-running romance series that featured a Achillean couple. These two both work in, like, one's an actor and one works with like the FBI, the CIA, or something like that. This was a lot of fun. I don't love romantic suspense as a subgenre of romance, but this one was cute, and I really appreciate this one for what it is. 9 Rules to Break When Romancing a Rake. Is that the title? This is a 4.5 star read for me. I really like this. This is a classic historical romance, wallflower plus reformed rake romance, and I love that. I love that dynamic. It kind of works for me every time. A Devil in Winter is also that dynamic as well, so that's a dynamic that works for me. So take what I say, of course, with a grain of salt, depending on your reading tastes. But this one definitely had me kicking my little feet and squealing, and I just love the dynamic between the two, the angst, the tension, the will they, won't they. I had a great time with this one. Night to Surrender by Tessa Dare is a 3-star for me, and it's mostly because of the plot. Part of the plot of this one is a group of men kind of invading and taking over a women's only space, and I don't like that, and I don't like how that plotline was resolved. Personally, that's kind of nitpicky, but there were other elements of this romance that didn't work exactly for me. I don't love the main character threatening them with marriage after they have consensual, intimate relations. Like, it was consensual and she wasn't expecting anything from it, but yet he's like, I'm gonna marry you, and she's like, I don't want that. I'm gonna marry you anyway because we had consensual sex. That was super weird. Didn't love that. There's a lot of talk of what being a real man and manliness and being a male. I don't think that worked very well. Tonally, this book is very silly, goofy, and fun, and so it's not like a believable historical romance, but honestly, that's kind of my preference. I don't need the historical. I prefer actually if historical romances are not historically accurate, personally. I enjoyed Susanna as our main character, but Bram, the love interest, I just didn't love him very much. So like that's why I'm like kind of in the middle on this romance. Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. I read 20% of this before DNFing. I hated the main man love interest. And not only that, this followed so many other characters outside of the romance. We're following like all of his family in Singapore and like a bunch of other side characters that I was like, where's the romance? Give me the actual romance. And I didn't like the man in the romance anyway when we did get that. So gave up on this one. Unfortunately, The Lotus Palace by Jeannie Lin was a book that I attempted, but I couldn't get into it. This is a romance with a mystery subplot, but it's historical, set in, I believe, China, which is really cool. And I like all of those elements in theory, but in practice, I just couldn't get into it. So I pretty much gave up on this one after like the first chapter. So don't take what I say, take what I say with a grain of salt. This one I just like couldn't wrap my head around it. Didn't quite work for me. The only notes I have for The Luckiest Lady in London by Sherry Thompson is that I gave it a 3.5 star. And at this point, I don't really remember why. So it was a middle of the road romance for me. This is historical. And I can't give you any more information. I'm so sorry. That's why I'm doing this video now, before I forget too much more. To All the Boys I Loved Before by Jenny Han. Honestly, I didn't read this one. I didn't even attempt this one. This is a young adult contemporary romance. But I will say, I love the movie so deeply. This is such a fun movie. That I can't imagine the book is worse. I imagine it's actually better than the movie. So if you enjoy the movie, go for it. But I didn't attempt it. I'm not really a young adult romance reader. So sorry about that. All In by Simona Arnstead. This was a 2-star read for me. This is a billionaire romance. There is a lot of finance talk in this book. This is about like the upper echelons of like financial business people, and there's a lot of finance talk in this book. And there's also like misogyny and racism, but it's surprisingly sweet as a romance, honestly. Like I was enjoying the romance. However, there is a very large rape subplot in this book that happened in the past, and it is dragged back up into the present timeline, and the main male character makes the rape of someone else kind of about him and his personal growth, and I hated that. I hate everything about that. It's the rape victim was comforting the main male hero by the end of the book about what happened to her. And that's not okay with me. So I didn't like this one. Moving on. An Extraordinary Union by Alyssa Cole. This is one of my favorites. This was a 4.5 star read for me. I've read Alyssa Cole before, but I hadn't read this one. This was super great. This had high stakes action. This is like rival spies who fall in love with each other, but in a historical context. I ate that up. It was fast-paced, it was thrilling, but the romance was actually really well-paced amongst the thrilling plotline. So I really liked this one. I really liked the flirting in it, and it was also kind of steamy. Not gonna lie. Wildfire by Ilona Andrews, which is book 3 of this series. So I decided to try to read book 1 of this series, and that didn't work for me, which kind of sucks. I read 55% of the book and I was bored and didn't care. It's another contemporary like paranormal romance. Intercepted by Alexa Martin. Now this is one of those books where I've never heard of this book. This has to do with a professional football player and kind of like a normie, a normal person, which I thought was great. This is actually like the main lady is actually in a relationship at the start of this book with another football player and gets like cheated on or broken up with, and so she ends up falling in love with a teammate of her ex, which very juicy, very like scandalous in the world of football or whatever. The tone of this is very cheesy and silly and goofy, but I had a good time and thought it was kind of fun. So I really enjoyed this one. I ended up giving it like 3.5 stars. I actually recommend this one, and I'm kind of grateful for this list because I'd never heard of this one before. The Wedding Date by Jasmine Guillory. Now, I remember reading this one. I read it several years ago at this point. I remember giving it like 3 stars. I remember it was all right, but it's a white guy and a black woman, and the guy is kind of racist in the beginning of the book, and like he grows out of that a little bit by the, he grows out of it by the end of the book. But that was just kind of weird to have your main male love interest racist towards his lady right up front. I didn't like that, so it's a 3-star. Another one that I didn't leave myself many notes, Aisha at Last by Uzma Jalaluddin. I gave this 2.5 stars. Oh, this is like a kind of a conservative romance. It's really like it's like a Muslim romance as well, so I appreciate it for that. But this is about 2 kind of devout people, like kind of getting to know each other before they even start dating. Like that's the whole plot, is them just like getting to know each other. And then at the end of the book, they're like, okay, yeah, we're dating now. And it's like, it felt like just the beginning of their story to me. But that's just my opinion. Forget Me Not by Brenda Jackson is an amnesia story that I didn't even attempt because from what I've heard about this, it's not for me. The man basically loses his memory, and the wife finds him after he loses memory, and it's them re-falling in love, but she decides not to tell him who she is. I don't know, that just rubbed me the wrong way. I don't like amnesia plot lines, so I didn't even attempt this one. We'll talk about these next 2 really quickly because they're some of my all-time favorites. Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert, 5 out of 5. Incredible. I love this story so deeply. It's about Chloe who puts together a bucket list because she's chronically ill and wants to start living her life, and Red, her superintendent, helps her complete the list. Incredible. I love this. It's one of my favorites. Check out my Talia Hibbert video if you want to know more about this author, but this is one of my favorites. The first time I saw my disability represented in a book, so it means a lot to me. Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. Is this book perfect? Absolutely not. But this book comforts me so deeply. It came to me at the perfect time. This is about the son of the President of the United States falling in love with a Prince of England, so it is a Killian. This book means so much to me, and I don't care what you say. The movie is great. It's so cheesy, and I love it. Deeply romantic story with high stakes. 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, one of my favorites. The Bride Test by Helen Huang. This is book 2 in the series, and personally I prefer the Kiss Quotient, but this was one featuring an autistic man falling in love with someone his mom kind of set him up with, brought her over from, I believe, like the Philippines or something, somewhere like that, somewhere in like Southeast Asia. And it's about her like coming to America and, you know, trying to impress him, and they end up actually developing feelings for each other and falling in love. And I didn't love this one, but I love the Kiss Quotient, so it kind of depends on what your reading preferences are. But I gave this one like 3.25 out of 5 stars. The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary is a romance that leans almost literary to me, but I do like this one. This was a 4-star read. This is about 2 people who share a flat, but they also share a bed, but he works the night shift and she works in the day, so they sleep at opposite times, and they leave notes to each other in the apartment because they never cross paths, so they leave notes to each other, and that's how they fall in love, which is super cute. And I actually thought the deeper themes of this one about like incarceration and like being mixed race and kind of all of that was actually explored really well, in my opinion, for, you know, a white person. Zenny by Rebecca Weatherspoon is about a fabulous black woman falling in love with this Scottish man. It's very steamy, it's very hot, it's very cute, 4 stars. It's also kind of a small town romance as well. Highly recommend that one too. Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall. This is an Achillean romance. It's a 4.5 out of 5 stars. This was very, very sweet and tender, and I don't have any more notes on it. I just really like this one. The Duke Who Didn't by Courtney Milan is a friends to lovers, and transparently, I don't love friends to lovers, so I ended up giving this 2.5 stars out of 5. But I will say, I really like seeing non-white people in historicals. So this was kind of a breath of fresh air. So I'm glad I read this one, even though it didn't quite pan out for me. You Had Me at Hola by Alexis Daria was a 3-star. It was a really quick read. This is about 2 actors falling in love on like a set, but I wasn't convinced of this couple's chemistry nor their undying love for each other. In my notes, I say the transition from co-stars to casual hooking up to friends to in love was not very well executed, in my opinion. Also, he says some truly terrible things during the 3rd act breakup, and I personally didn't forgive him. So there you go. Past Hannah coming in clutch with her notes. It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey is a 4.5 out of 5 stars. And this is one of those ones where I had heard so much negativity about that I kind of was steering clear of this book, and then this list came out, I decided to pursue it, and I'm really glad I did, because this one ended up being a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Our main character is kind of a spoiled brat, but she grows so much as a character from that, and she still ends up being a little bit still of a spoiled brat by the end of the book, but she basically gets cut off financially at the beginning of the book and has to renovate her dad's bar in this small fishing town to, you know, make money, and she also like needs a break from the spotlight, and she falls in love with a crab fisherman, and it was great. It was great angst and tension. He spoils the crap out of her, which is such a fun, you know, love language to explore. I really like this one. And Tessa Bailey has really intense smut and dirty talk if you're into that. Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe is a queer, historical, young adult romance. And I didn't end up reading this one or attempting it because it just doesn't interest me that much. Again, I'm not really a young adult reader. I know this is like a really highly critically acclaimed book, so, you know, if it interests you, go for it, but this one just doesn't appeal to me, is how I'll say it. 7 Days in June by Tia Williams is a little, again, it was like a 3.5 star, little too literary for my personal taste, but I love the migraine representation in this one. A Caribbean Heiress in Paris by Adriana Herrera is one of my favorite historicals, one of my favorite romances, period, of all time. This is a 4.5 out of 5 stars. This is a marriage of convenience where both parties get something equally out of the marriage. Honestly, this is really hot, and the flirting in this book is so good. And I love, again, seeing non-white people as main characters in historicals. Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan is a really, really good book. But it's also like Kennedy Ryan is another author that writes a little bit more literary, a little bit more thematically intense than my personal reading taste. This is still like a 4-star read, but this one is intense. Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I have read 2 other Emily Henry books, and I haven't read this one in particular, and I only liked People We Meet on Vacation, which I've heard is her most different from all of her other books, and if that's the only one I like, I'm probably not gonna like this one, but Emily Henry is popular enough as it is. She doesn't need me also to read all of her books. Dating Dr. Dill by Nisha Sharma is excellent. I love this one. This is a Taming of the Shrew contemporary retelling, which I love Shakespeare, so this was gonna work for me. It's very enemies to lovers, like I hate you but I'm gonna make out with you anyway kind of situation, and I love angst and tension in my romances. This is about a doctor who does like a daytime TV special, and he gets confronted by someone he like almost had a one-night stand with. And it's their romance, and I ate this up. Honey and Spice by Willow Babalola is almost young adult. It's like a college romance, which is right on the cusp between, yeah, of course, young adult and adult. This one was just all right for me. It's 3 stars. It's kind of like taming the bad boy situation, and like a hardcore feminist getting to know each other and realizing that they're not just like those labels, which is fine. I didn't love it, I didn't hate it. It was very middle of the road for me. Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. I'm so sorry, but I thought the writing of this book was so cringy and terrible. I couldn't get past the first 3 chapters. I'm so sorry. I'm sure this author is gonna do well and gonna improve, but I could not. It's a hockey star, ice skater, college romance. No, I couldn't do it with the writing. Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. I am an Abby Jimenez stan. Part of Your World, 5 out of 5 stars. Incredible. This is about a doctor from Minneapolis and a guy from a small town, like kind of happenstance meeting, falling in love, and doing a long distance relationship. It's incredible. It's impeccable. It's emotional. It's impactful. I cry like a little baby every time I read it, and I've read it multiple times. Abby Jimenez in this is her best romance series, in my opinion. The Part of Your World series, all 3 of these books are excellent. They're hard-hitting and emotional and deeply romantic. I love Abby Jimenez. I love this book. 5 out of 5 stars. The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana is contemporary fantasy with a romantic subplot. So this didn't quite work for me as a fantasy nor as a romance, and so I ended up giving it 3 stars. This doesn't feel like a deep fantasy, and it feels very light on both fronts. It doesn't feel very deep in the fantasy nor deep in the romance. Didn't really work for me, but it is beloved, so give it a try if you're interested in a contemporary romance fantasy. The Vibrant Years by Sonali Dev is not at my library. Apologies, couldn't get access to it. But we have Chef's Choice by G.J. Alexander. We love seeing a trans love story thrown in the mix. Both of the main characters are trans. We love to see it. This is a fake dating scheme where one of the characters is teaching the other to cook, to do a cooking competition, to gain an inheritance. It's a little convoluted in its premise, but this was ultimately really sweet and cute. I thought this book ultimately had some pacing issues, and I kind of wasn't buying the chemistry 100% of the time between these two, but it was kind of cute. Gave it 3.5 stars. Finally, we have Love Theoretically by Allie Hazelwood, which was a 3-star read. Honestly, Love Theoretically is the best Allie Hazelwood that I've read. I've read 3 of her novellas, 2 of her novels at this point. This is the best one. It's still only a 3-star for me personally. I don't remember his name, but the guy in this book is so amazing. He is 5 stars worthy. But I didn't really love the execution of the romance, and the female protagonist was not my cup of tea. But he was awesome. And so that's why I ended up landing on a 3-star. Allie Hazelwood is just not an author for me, although she is incredibly popular. So again, take that with a grain of salt. That was so many books to talk about and try to review as rapidly as possible. 10 of my favorite books. The 10 that I deeply love are Lord of Scoundrels, The Viscount Who Loved Me, Double in Winter, 9 Rules to Break When Romancing a Rake, Get a Life, Chloe Brown, Red, White, and Royal Blue, Boyfriend Material, It Happened One Summer, Dating Dr. Dill, and Part of Your World. Those are my personal favorites, but again, I just want to reiterate how awesome this list actually is. So if you're trying to get into romance and you're unsure where to start or what subgenres you're interested, this is such a wide variety of genres, subgenres, age ranges, diverse authors, you know, different types of couple dynamics. We've got queer work in here, we've got trans love in here. This list kind of has a little bit of everything, so I highly recommend going and checking out this list. Maybe don't read all 50 like I tried to do, but pick ones that you're interested in. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sure this is a long one. Have you read this list? Which ones are your favorite from this list? Are they different from mine? They probably are, let's be real. But I'd love to know all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in another video of mine very soon. Bye!